I'd like to quickly introduce myself. My name is Hadi Sahonyang. I'm the chairperson of ADEPT, and I handed over to somebody else. Organizations are democratic, unlike countries. Since 2021, Alexis has been chairing ADEPT. He's not here, unfortunately, but I'm here to share the experience of ADEPT. It's a very interesting experience. I'd also like to talk about Forum, which is diaspora, a French diaspora that brings together Asia, Southeast Asia, the Indian Ocean, Africa, and France. ADEPT is in 27 European Union countries and 55 countries of the African Union. So it is a very big platform that is implementing projects. I will go back to those projects when I have a chance to speak later on. That's my introduction. Thank you. Over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ola Tarsim, and I'm a senior project manager within the German Development Corporation, specialized on diaspora engagement and especially on diaspora entrepreneurship. And I'm very happy to be here, very happy to be surrounded by powerful women, as an exception to all the other panels, which is great. Yeah, and I was speaking to a topic which is very close to my heart, because I am a second-generation Tunisian, born and raised in Germany, and then went to Tunisia to work on this topic. So I'm relating very much from my mind and my heart to the topic. I hope I can transmit that to you.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Elvina Quayson. I'm Diaspora Engagement Specialist at ICMPD, and I work within the European Union Global Diaspora Facility. The core of our work is looking at how to support countries of origins, governments, connecting them with their diaspora professionals to push forward and enhance work being done for sustainable development. I'm very interested in this particular topic, having focused on diaspora for over 20 years and myself been a diaspora entrepreneur as well as supported diaspora entrepreneurs. And so I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. Thank you.
Good afternoon, I'm Habiba Adi. I represent actually today Expertise France, but not only Meet Africa. And I actually speak at Meet Africa because I'm the ex-program manager of Meet Africa, but I won't only speak about this project. In my background, I'm a former ex-entrepreneur, also from the diaspora. And now I'm the head of the entrepreneurship unit at Expertise France. So we have Meet Africa as one of the programs developing entrepreneurship between Europe and Africa, and other also new programs developing entrepreneurship in Comoros Island or Madagascar and other countries coming in the future.
Thank you very much. The reason why I'm standing is because I was given the right to a short presentation to kickstart our conversation, as in 2021, together with ADEPT and FEHASO, we conducted a study on the Malian diaspora just before the COVID crisis. There were 300 respondents, 200 individuals, 100 associations, and I will present key figures and trends from what transpired back then, before we can see if there were dynamics that were still ongoing or not. Regarding collective investors associations, you see the figures behind me. There are three key takeaways that we can remember today. The first one is a significant shift for several years from social investment to productive investment. Back a decade ago, the number was significantly lower. The second learning is that the savings, they are no longer under the mattress, as we could have witnessed in the years. There is an appeal for financial products from the associations. The third point is also an increase in SME investments. there are conditions. The associations, they want those investments to be liquid and to generate an impact, which is not necessarily always simultaneous, hence perhaps a little delay in transforming this will into reality. When looking at individual investors, I want to emphasize two lessons. Of course, this huge will to do something, whether entrepreneurship or investment, and on the other hand, a small part of actions which showcase, even if we're perhaps on the second generation panel, which has a high ability and will to invest, that there is a strong belief that there is a high potential. And if we can bridge the will and the commitment, it could derive in significant progress in back home. That was key figures to just pinpoint and set up the background. As I said, it was undertaken before the COVID crisis and political crisis in Mali. So my first question is to see if those figures evolved or if they are also real in other countries. Hadi, we did the study together. Is it still accurate? And perhaps, do you see this dynamic, this trend, as a linear one or as something that's following cycles? And I will see.
Oui, pardon, j'avais pas...
I think it makes sense to the extent that the collaboration with IFAD began in 2008, where we tried mapping the diaspora in Italy, Spain, and France, where they have high councils of the diaspora. And through those structures, we're able to identify diaspora organizations of great influence in all manner of investments. When we talk about organizations, you know that for diaspora organizations, you have collective investment that have a social impact, and Malians and Senegalese are champions. And through that mapping, IFAD also asked us to move on to a second phase that Martin has briefly spoke about. It's interesting to me because there's a sort of shift, a paradigm shift in the area of investment. Before, investment was more on an individual basis. People in the diaspora would send money for a small poultry farm or for transport, etc. You have young people who are better equipped in terms of understanding investments, and they're trying to invest sustainably. They want to make productive or profitable investments. So that paradigm shift shows that it's not just in Mali. You could benchmark using Mali. You could also use Senegal and other countries. These kinds of investment need to be taken into account. So when I look at the study that has been alluded to in terms of the localization of programs, it's often in big towns. But this morning, the first panel demonstrated that agriculture is of great interest to young people. Africa is the food basket of the world, and when you talk about food basket, you see multinationals and countries like China that are coming to literally grab land in Africa to farm. So we need to ask ourselves questions about the great potential of our land and our solar potential. That would be important for our economic development as well as the creation of employment for youth. Sokna say that agriculture is one of the priorities of our country. We need to take into account new paradigms, new procedures that to find out whether or not youth are interested in investing in government institutions or in private institutions. So when we talk about challenges and constraints, we could talk about why youth are not ready to invest. There's a lack of trust or mistrust with regard to government management and the administration. So then that is important to keep in mind. The study is very current because it's the beginning of something that we can develop further. In Mali, it's true, we're not been able to see the impact after the study, but it's something that we should follow up on.
Yeah, Tunisia had its share of crises too. Did you observe the same trends or dynamics, or is it different from what we saw in Mali?
I would say it's both. It's a little different and it's similar. So when we look at 2011, the famous Arab Spring that started in Tunisia, we've seen a dynamic of a lot of youth, young people that aspired and wished to go back and do something for Tunisia. And maybe I would emphasize the do something for Tunisia, because doing something for Tunisia or for any other country doesn't necessarily mean investing. But we, and when I say we, it's governments, it's the government of Tunisia, it's the German Development Corporation, it's the diaspora in itself that confused investment and entrepreneurship with doing something in general. And we saw a lot of people that then really invested. So since 2011, there has been waves of diasporans who came and invested and started their startups or SMEs. But we've seen at the same time a lot of frustration, as well as some attempts and then quickly the decision to not invest, which go with a lot of factors I will come back to in the second round.
Thank you. Elvina, you perhaps have a more European perspective with ICMPD. Did you see the same from other European countries and to other African countries, for instance, or Asian countries also?
Sorry, did I see the same?
The same trends of increased interest for entrepreneurship and investment.
Sure, and beyond, really. Also beyond the experience with ICMPD, it's been quite a long history of looking at predominantly the relationship between the diaspora in the UK and Africa, and then other European countries in Africa. So I would definitely say that there has been a trend, a marked trend, particularly if I look at a country I'm very familiar with, Ghana, and over the last 10, even 15 years, you've had an increased interest from young diaspora who are now slightly older diaspora, and also what's our bracket for young is another question to look at, and looking at how they can invest into Ghana and other countries on the continent. I liked that Ula brought in the broader way of looking at investment, because investment has and does, and I will look at that, cover the financial investment into a country, but also now we're also increasingly seeing the use of time and skills, which can often translate into a financial return. And some youth are using some very interesting ways and innovative ways of creating those opportunities. So some of the challenges that we've seen across the board, whichever age range and demographic, in terms of investing, has been in access to accurate, timely, and relevant data, This has been a huge challenge for those who wish to invest in countries of origin or in other countries of interest, because it can be quite difficult, especially if you are not in country, to be able to access information. While yes, more and more data and reports and information is being available online, it's not always kept up to date. So you do the right things, you create your business plan or you look at investment opportunities, but the data that you're working from is out of date. And so that has added to people's challenge in being able to invest. Equal to that would be due diligence, being able to look into the opportunities, look into how are they protected. We've spoken a lot over the last few days around regulatory frameworks and securitization and being able to protect various ways of interaction. This is a key problem or challenge, if we like, that people are experiencing with investment. And actually it is good to use the word challenge rather than problem, because we've also seen a slight shift to the entrepreneurial lens, that people have started to use this as a business. They ring fence opportunities in country for those to be able to invest in. For those of you that caught Eric Richard speak about home strings, this was a very early introduction of this kind of platform to enable diaspora to invest. And so then, yes, our final point on youth and investment, we're seeing youth looking at partnerships. So those in the diaspora looking at partnerships, particularly those in, I would say, first, second, third, and subsequent generations. They're looking at being like angel investors, because sometimes the amounts of money needed for businesses on the ground are not out of their realm, out of their range. This does bring into question things about due diligence and trust and so on, which can cause problems, but it is definitely an area that they're looking into. We're also seeing collective purchasing of land, of property, groups coming together and seeing that there's Airbnb opportunities now with the increase in diaspora heritage and general tourism interest in African countries. The levels of hospitality in terms of hotels and restaurants and transport are not matching, and people are seeing this as an opportunity, particularly those who have been living abroad and seen what is happening easily and regularly around them, and wanting to see how they can adapt this to work in countries of origin or countries of interest that they've been introduced to.
Thank you. Habiba, I will ask you two questions at once. First one on the interest of the public for Meet Africa. Did it meet its public? Was there a dynamic that supported what we say and was also as individual investors engaging into Meet Africa? And from your experience, what were their most vibrant challenges and what was the top difficulty for them in their transformation from the commitment to the action?
Thank you, Martin, for these questions. Crisis in Chinese means opportunity. And I think African entrepreneurs understand this word very good, because during the COVID crisis, I've never worked so much during this COVID crisis. We launched Meet Africa during this crisis in December 2020. And we launched application forms for Meet Africa for being supported in entrepreneurship adventure in Africa, and we received 850 applications between December and February 2021. So yeah, there were a lot of interest in working and developing businesses, entrepreneurship in Africa. I think it comes also from the fact that when you lose your job in Europe, and because it becomes difficult, then you say, okay, how can I change the world and become an entrepreneur in Africa? So I have just 3 questions to the audience. So I want to interact with you. How many of you are entrepreneurs? Okay. How many of you dream of becoming entrepreneurs?
The rest of the room.
The rest of the room.
Eric, you are an entrepreneur.
And how many of you are from diaspora? Okay, so more. Okay, thank you very much. So yeah, I think there was this this difference between having the dream and fantasy about becoming an entrepreneur in Africa and in its home country, and the reality that we face when we go, but not as visiting family or vacation, but as a businessman or businesswoman. So the first challenges that entrepreneurs tell us about how they live the first steps in the home country and doing the administrative procedures, etc., is that they are not recognized that as investors. They are recognized as people living there or living abroad. So if you need one paper to register as a business, and I know in Tunisia or in Morocco or in Senegal, maybe you need 2 weeks because one office sends you to another office because you need a paper, and then the second office sends you to the third office because there is a new paper coming out, and you don't have the first paper that came out from the first office, and you lose so much time looking for like some simple steps, having these administrative issues done. So there is the first challenge. I think it is this one, like very simple steps for registering as an enterprise in a country is difficult because you are either an investor or a local entrepreneur, so you don't know where you live. The second one is HR. It's recruitment, because they struggle a lot to find people to work for them. So I think entrepreneurs are not only diaspora entrepreneurs are not only entrepreneurs, but they also train their home country fellows to become more professional, more structured, and learn about the jobs that they are offering. The third challenge I see is the need of the market adaptation. Because as a diaspora, you don't live there anymore, so you don't know how the culture is going on, and you need to know the prices. You need to know how people live every day and the problems they face every day, so you can provide a good and high qualified service. And the last challenge for me is this dichotomy between the perception of diaspora as migrants and the reality of diaspora, which is high qualified executives, CEOs, etc. And us, the Europeans, see them, not me, but we hear, but some governments or European institutions see them as migrants that return to their home countries. But actually, it is just high qualified people, or even if they are not high qualified, but they have know-how and they want to do something and they are capable of doing it. So migrants, the word itself seems like an insult, I'm not, why migrant? What is this? I don't know, why you qualify me as a migrant? So I think this is also a challenge which sets the mindset of how I will go to my home country and how I will be perceived by the country I left or by the country that will host me.
Thank you so much. Avila, you mentioned outdated data. Do you see other things?
Yes, definitely. And Habiba's brought a few things to mind. I mentioned earlier that I had also been a diaspora entrepreneur, and the point Habiba made about trying to register a business and the challenges, that created a solution. Literally, my business was called Silk Solutions, and I used to assist people to set up businesses who were returning to Ghana. And as the point was made that you are looking at a women-strong platform, I did think it'd be interesting to bring in that added dynamic and challenge that it brings to those who want to both invest and move into countries as entrepreneurs. I can give an example of a friend who has opened a restaurant. She opened a restaurant and a marketing company. She's been now in Ghana for 10 years. And the challenges that she's had to face, because hers is a woman-headed business, and so people finding it difficult to work with her or recognize her as the main person of the business to interact with, the challenges in just negotiating contracts and deals, and then some of the social challenges of interacting with men who do not easily see women in these roles have all been challenges she's had to face, as well as those of managing staff who are perhaps more accustomed to having a male as their manager boss and may find it challenging to have a female as the person that they're answering to. So these are just some of the other areas that people I know have directly experienced and need to take into consideration when thinking about going into business. In terms of the investing side of the potential challenges, it's been more of a challenge in discussion with women within some of the African countries we've worked with, and access to being able to manage their own finances and income to be able to do the investment work they wish to do. Or equally and extremely frustratingly, having ideas and plans to invest and not being able to move forward because they do not get the permission of the male within the family or the relationship or in that particular space. So these are still some of the challenges that are being faced, and organizations, some of those that we partner with at ICMPD under UDIF and other organizations, are working with women to try and overcome. We had this discussion particularly when we were looking at crowdfunding and crowd lending possibilities in Benin and Ghana with our partner Ford. Stella spoke earlier. And some of the women, many of the women who were entrepreneurs doing very well, spoke about this as a challenge and wanted to see how mechanisms like crowdfunding could help give them an avenue to be able to recycle their money that they've made through their businesses through crowdfunding, so it didn't have to quite touch through their accounts, and give them a little bit more independence about how they utilized their funds. I'll leave it there. I don't want to take up all the time. So thanks.
I don't even have to manage time. How do you conquer with these obstacles? Do you see others?
Yes, I would go to a broader level. And I think one of the first questions we have to look at to maybe understand this gap between the intention or the willingness to invest, to be an entrepreneur, and then the actual investment or the actual entrepreneurship. And the first question is, are we asking the right ask? So this is the countryside, the country of origin side, or the region's ask. Are we really asking the right ask? And I think that sometimes, and this is what I've been able to observe in Tunisia, for example, is that we are asking our diasporas to invest, but our narrative is to help. And this creates a lot of frustration and misunderstanding in what is to expect and what is to be received at the end of the day. But diaspora entrepreneurship and diaspora investment is a socio-economic question. It's not an emotional question. But don't get me wrong, emotion is very important, because emotion makes the diaspora investor or the diaspora entrepreneur an investor plus. It's like friends with benefits. It's an investor with benefits. So this emotion is what puts the country on the investment map of the diaspora. But then the decision-making process is purely an economic one. It's a 1 + 1. It's, do I get is the terrain rightly prepared? Do I have the regulations that will allow me to thrive? Do I have the right assistance? Do I have the access to finance? Do I have the access to markets? So all those questions are hard facts, which should be aligned to the ask, or the ask should be aligned to this decision-making process. And then there is the other one, the other question, which is important, and this is the look to the diaspora, what is my intention? So am I really an entrepreneur or am I a philanthropist? I'll give you an example of one of our projects where we were working with a foreign direct investment promotion agency, and they got into a very heated discussion with a lot of diaspora entrepreneurs from France, from Germany, and then they just shouted at them and said, "Stop acting as if you were coming to save us." And I think this underlines very well this misunderstanding between the two sides. It's wrong to be an investor and coming with the attitude, "I'm helping you out." And it's wrong to ask for help and then expecting them to be investors. So this should be really well prepared and designed in the way we approach and in our narrative and in our country marketing strategy for investment. So those are things which are very important, I think, and which cause a lot of misunderstandings and mis-expectations on the two sides. So maybe what is important is, if we want to stimulate the willingness, we should call for the emotional side as one of the calls we should do. But if we wanted to translate into actual investment or actual entrepreneurship, we should put hard facts on the tables, due diligence. We should prepare everything that is necessary to understand about the market, about the restrictions, the regulations, the obstacles, but the opportunities as well. They should be very visible. I will leave it to that.
Thank you. Khadi, je posais un peu la même question.
Kati, I'm going to ask you the same question. I'm going to answer on that question because we're asking good questions. And especially investment when it comes to gender, when it comes to women, how women are perceived when it comes to entrepreneurship. Many women are entrepreneurs, and I want to talk about Nana Benz, who died recently in Togo, and to show that women were always the initiators of companies with models that have succeeded, like Nana Benz in Africa. But what is the case in Africa is that women entrepreneurship is so reduced and found only in the informal sector, and so they're not really able to break out. And so when it comes to that, also when it comes to governance, the private sector needs to structure itself better so that it can pull towards the top the women entrepreneurs. So this is a problem on the entrepreneurship side. And also when it comes to the emotional aspect, I think that the importance of diaspora is that link. Not necessarily high-tech, but high-touch. This means the link that you have with the country. This is very important. So in investment in social impact and also in the development sector. In Senegal, there are investments in PIST requiring a certain expertise, where expertise from diaspora can be found in key sectors, whether it's in scientific fields, agricultural fields. But it's this emotional link that helps members from the diaspora to be called upon by their countries to come and invest in. And so the emotional aspect does not play a role when you're an investor. The diaspora is really the procedures, the financial procedures that needs to be observed. And contrary to what we think, some succeed better to invest in other countries. For example, I can invest in Mali and be successful instead of remaining in Senegal because the relatives, that is another challenge that we are all aware of.
Fatou has left, these are issues that we need, or questions that we need to ask ourselves. Is this link there? So when we talk on the professional front, we need to move to other models, pure entrepreneurial models that can help us to thrive. If you have any other questions, do you see challenges or opportunities that are key to the diaspora? The opportunities that I see for the diaspora, yes, there is the financial asset, because usually members of the diaspora who invest were able to save some money beforehand. And so the distance, maybe that is where the challenge is. Maybe the investor is not on site, so they cannot be able to guarantee the factors of success. Luckily, there are structures in place that can support them, which even if they are far away, they can guarantee the investment of this member of the diaspora. There are many entities, there are many financial funds that are in place. I can talk about Zabang in Mali. The young member of the diaspora in France, and started her entrepreneurship and was supported by some entities, and she was able to come back to Mali. But with this mindset, where she's not dealing with certain cultural aspects, and so there is this distance to the culture, and so she can be able to carry out successfully her business. So there are two aspects. So in one way it can be positive. On the other side, we need to become professional, and this will enable the person to be able to succeed.
What are the drivers and the added value of diaspora in your experience?
Oh, the added value of diasporas, I think, are just multiple. So, but they are linked to those misconceptions as well. I would say, as a first thing, they know the country, or at least they have an affinity to the country, to certain aspects of the country. But this is a two-sided coin. So sometimes, because the knowledge of what is going on in the country drove them to leave the country. So this has to be addressed in a very delicate way, I think. But it's a driver. I know my country. I speak the language, maybe, which facilitates a lot of things. I may be able to understand cultural codes, and this makes it easier for me instead of going to Morocco maybe, or to Senegal as a Tunisian. But as I said, it has to be addressed in a very, very intelligent way, because it can also be a very negative way if we don't think about that. What we have is also the access to information may be easier, or we have to think of how to ease the access to information. But this is also a driver to the decision to invest in the country or in the region. The access to networks would also positively influence the decision-making process, I think, and then networks to decision makers, but also, and I think this is something which often we oversee, network the diasporas amongst each other once they are entrepreneurs in the country. I think there is a huge need of sharing experience of diasporans amongst each other, and learn from each other how they overcome obstacles or certain periods of frustration that each and every one of us has experienced in the country of origin. So there are a lot of drivers, I think. The motivations are, of course, emotional. There are opportunities that we can't neglect in the continent as a general. It's a continent where there is still so much to do and so much opportunities compared to Germany. It's a market that is already very set up. Every niche is being served by multiple players. But in our continent, there is still a lot of opportunity. And I think this is one of the major drivers beside the emotional and affective links to the countries. Here, we have opportunities, untapped opportunities, and we can be the pioneer, we can be the second one or the third one, but we would be one of the first in the market in something we would do. So this is, I think, a major driver that has as well to be addressed in this very clear way with very clear information, visibility, and access to data and business opportunities. Yeah.
Elvina, did the client of Silk Solution had vantage points also? What did you see their experience?
It's like being on Zoom and forgetting to hit your button. Actually, coming to a little bit of what people were saying, and something that we haven't touched on so much, is also the external drivers in terms of, we've talked a lot about the hostile environment that's being created for many migrants, and that does have an impact on their children, who are the next generations and the first, second, third generations. You can then begin to look at that as racism that's being faced. Habiba touched on how crisis becomes an opportunity. During COVID, for those in the UK, America, France, I think pretty much Europe erupted, we saw such strong racist sentiment towards people of colour. And off the back of that, we saw a number of diaspora, some from countries of origin, some going to other countries, but realising that I can work remotely, I don't have to be in this country, I don't want to be in this country, and so they went and set up for a few months, a year, some people have not come back, and set up homes and then also invested in these other environments. In Ghana, we talk a lot about the year of return and beyond year of return, and a lot of this is also being driven by the strong desire of African Americans and then those within Europe, diaspora within Europe, to want to invest in Ghana, who, as was spoken about, has set up an enabling environment, or an increasingly more positive or instructive enabling environment for diaspora to get the information, to get the data, to understand who's there to support them, to invest in property, to invest in a business, or what have you. And so it's very important to look at that impact and driver on diaspora and their investment and entrepreneurial journeys. And then within the local environment, there's an increasing need or understanding of the realities of those in the diaspora, and this also needs to be increasingly built upon. That dynamic you were talking about, help me with one hand and stop trying to help me with the other hand, is very real and will continue, to be honest. It's going to be a difficult one to address quickly, but through a training that happened very recently, within the training, a real breakdown, a really good generational breakdown of diaspora, what they experience, why they want to connect with their home countries or countries on the continent took place. And it really shifted the participants who were local entrepreneurs and how they perceived diaspora, and also helped them to start to see how that they could interact with diaspora as potential customers. Be it, a lot of them are within the agricultural sector. And again, the same needs were required. They need to understand the diaspora. They need to have access to data and information. Quick plug, there are some amazing diaspora mapping flyers at the ICMPD stand, which feeds into this need for information. I'm laughing about it, but it is true. If you don't know where your potential customer is, or you don't know what they're going through, or you don't know how to interact and understand them, then that also becomes a challenge, whether you have them as investor or investee, or if they want to build partnerships for business and so on with each other. So that's another area for us to keep in mind as we look at these drivers.
Great. Habiba, do you see a common denominator for Meet Africa entrepreneurs who are successfully creating and are developing their companies?
Common denominator as in the different countries, you mean? Or?
Yeah, the key to success. Just give them to us.
Okay. Common denominator. Yes, there is a shift and new tendencies. So Meet Africa is operating in 6 countries. I didn't precise it. In Tunisia, Morocco, Senegal, Ivory Coast, Mali, and Cameroon. So 6 very different countries. And I was afraid actually that we have 6 Meet Africas in every country. So we tried very hard, very hard to have this highlights on this one DNA of one project, you know, in the 6 countries. But we had to adapt our approach in every country by dialogue with every public institution, local public institution, and having this spectrum of Cameroon diaspora is very different of Tunisian diaspora, and we cannot implement exactly the same activities everywhere. But in general, I can have like some tendencies. I will speak for tendencies for the entrepreneurs, like very pragmatic ones, and then about more macroeconomics. For the entrepreneurs, of course, we have traditional projects in agriculture or in education or in business, like selling handcraft products, etc. But even if in traditional sectors, we have a lot of tech everywhere. Like we have e-agriculture, we have e-handcrafting businesses, health tech projects, etc. And the great surprise that we had is that we discovered really big boldness actually in entrepreneurs, in our entrepreneurs. And we have, I will give some examples. In Morocco, for example, we have a serious game platform for education. So, you know, it's education, but it's on serious game, implemented in Morocco, created in Morocco and everywhere. We have a lot of recycling industries. We have the future Elon Musk. The African future Elon Musk. Yes, he's producing electric cars and buses in Senegal. So very proud, and we are hoping him a lot of luck. And then, for example, in agriculture in Cameroon, we have 2 great girls, which seems to be twins, but they are not even sisters. They export exotic fruits from local farms in Cameroon to France through the blockchain. So every step from the producers to the restaurant, the gourmet restaurant in Paris, is followed on the blockchain. So there's 100% transparency for this project. And we have also made in Africa chocolate, because maybe you know, maybe you don't, but Ivory Coast chocolate is not produced in Ivory Coast, it's produced in Switzerland. So our entrepreneur trained women in Ivory Coast to collect, but also to transform chocolate. So we have Ivory Coast chocolate in our entrepreneurs. So yeah, we have very different tendencies among the entrepreneurs. And more in the ecosystem, there is this double speed, 2-speed, evolution, where the entrepreneurs are actually normal entrepreneurs, and they need to have everything fast. They need to have money, and they need to have customers and a business model and qualified labor force. So they need them to, use Excel sheet and be on time or at work, like very simple stuff. But the market is not as ready as they need it to be. So this is a double speed society, so they have to be very, very patient and find solutions to embrace this. Two other very interesting facts that we got is that our entrepreneurs are looking for relevant markets, so fast-growing markets, and there is this emotional, of course, cause, but even if I am from Algeria, okay, and I want to just make business, okay, Algeria is a big market, it's not good example, but I don't know. Senegal is a very mature ecosystem, but it's a small country. So comparing to Ivory Coast, so now the entrepreneurs don't even look just on the emotional factor, but also on where can I buy more? Actually, we can and sell more, buy and selling. It's not for the. It's also from the production. Issue, and not having just customers, but also finding the best providers in Africa. And this created a Pan-African willingness to invest between African diaspora in Africa. So we have Tunisian entrepreneurs willing to invest in Senegal, and Senegal entrepreneurs wanting to invest in Morocco. And our entrepreneurs, we didn't even actually plan it in Mid-Africa, but they say you have 6 countries, so you know the public agency in Senegal, and you know, I don't know, the investment agency in Morocco. I want to meet them as a Tunisian or as a Cameroon entrepreneur. So they really wanted to be more Pan-African, and I was really happy to discover this, and that led also the national public agencies to work together and build partnerships between African public agencies. So that's for me the most relevant things that we see in Mid-Africa. Sorry if I was too long.
That's perfect. We just have time for the last talk, and I would like it to focus on what could be supporting this trend and these successes. We don't have time to develop a lot, so perhaps just brief answers. I will start with you again, Habiba. Just looking at the ecosystem, you've extensively worked with the ecosystem technical support to entrepreneurship. If there is one thing or two you would like to change or emphasize, and that could matter for entrepreneurs, we often result that policy is the solution, but let's assume policy and politics do not have any grip on our topic. Focusing on the ecosystem, what could be a driver for a change in better ways?
I think stuck. I think it's automatic. It's open automatic. No. Oh. I think but we figured actually that incubators they run after money actually, and after donors, and it is one of our challenges as international cooperation agencies. Because we launch a new, comment on dit, appel d'offres, Martin, comment on dit?
How do you say tenders?
Tenders, and so incubators look for a business model. So the tendency is they do all the same, and so they do all pre-incubation. Okay, so for young entrepreneurs, and there's no one supporting entrepreneurs after 3 years, for example, or after having a certain amount of budget. Okay, thank you. So my dream for the ecosystem is that the incubators work together, not as competitors in tenders, but as partners, and creating it's complicated in English, but une lisible, comment dire, un parcours lisible, un parcours homogène, comment dire?
Pathway.
Like un chemin, comment dire? Yeah, okay. Help me. Every step, actually, for entrepreneurs, they have to be coherent in every step and build. I don't know how comment dit parcours, je sais pas. Roadmap, yes, thank you. Yes, so a coherent roadmap for entrepreneurs. So how we start. how you build your business, how you find customers, and how you launch your business in this market, and how you will look for the money. So I think now we have too much incubators in one step, but no one, or we have a lot of gaps actually in other steps of the roadmap as an entrepreneur. So I think this is really the challenge of ecosystems in every country. It's also the difficulty in Europe. I don't think that we resolve this problem, but only 10% of entrepreneurs are being supported now, and we know that 87% of entrepreneurs who are supported will be still alive after 3 years. So the support of entrepreneur is really important and have a lot of consequences on his roadmap. So thank you.
Thank you. Alvina, in 2 minutes, you have the power to change something within the government of Ghana. What should it be?
I actually was going to use Ghana as an example of what others could be looking at doing and Ghana can build on doing, which is working transversely across the different ministries. A diaspora investor or a diaspora entrepreneur may or may not have citizenship, may or may not have enough knowledge of the country that they're going into, even if they are connected. And so when you see the different ministries working with each other, so you have the Office of Diaspora working with Trade and Industry, working with Foreign Affairs, working with tourism or roads and infrastructure, depending on which area of focus the diaspora wish to invest in, and then liaising efficiently with their investment promotion center, we can see a much more fluid and a much more helpful assistance being provided to investors. And this applies not just to diaspora really, but for local entrepreneurs and investors as well. But really seeing a more connected and joined up way of working, so you don't have a policy being developed in one area which has a direct negative impact on another area which can also happen. And so I would just say that this would be a useful practice to be seen in other countries.
Ula, what could donor do better also to support entrepreneurship and investment from diaspora?
Well, first of all, I would say to understand that we are public structures and not the best ones in assisting entrepreneurs in a very agile way. So that's, I think, one major thing to keep in mind. I would say that stepping back and understanding that we have the ability and the power to be a broker for diaspora entrepreneurs and diaspora investors would be a very good thing to do. What do I mean with broker? Advocate for diaspora entrepreneurs. And why should we be interested in that? It's because as much as they belong to their countries of origin, they belong to their countries of residence as well. And we have an interest in empowering them to build the bridges with our countries. This would be one thing to act on as a broker. The second thing would be to create the access to decision makers on both sides. So we deal with decision makers in their countries of origin, and we deal with decision makers in our countries, and facilitating those accesses would be a huge thing for the entrepreneurs in different sectors, like in regulating sectors. If you look at investment regulations, for example, and how to facilitate that on both sides, this could be something, or should be something, donor organizations should be working on. And then really the advocacy for regulatory changes, and not only the access to decision makers, but being active in changing regulations to facilitate investment, and exchange, bilateral exchanges that come then with the activity of the entrepreneur. So really moving from assistance, direct assistance to entrepreneurs towards being the broker and doing advocacy for diaspora investment and entrepreneurship would be a good thing to do, I think.
Great. Thank you. Hadi, you are our elder, so I was willing to give you the last word, and focusing on diaspora associations, what could be a leverage for changing things in better ways?
Oui, moi,
the point that I wish to raise is that sometimes we are off track. Do we ask ourselves the same questions? And she's raised the same issue. Not all diaspora representatives can be businessmen or women. There's no cut and paste model. So the urge to invest should come with the urge to sacrifice and become an entrepreneur. So if it is, you need to become a productive entrepreneur before you bring in the diaspora for value addition. So the desire to be an entrepreneur and tap into investment opportunities are necessary, and the government needs to create investment opportunities through political will so that there's security, even if it's a private investment. In some countries, the diaspora want to invest because there's a framework, there's their incentives, their security, their tax incentives, etc. You have a single window or one-stop window so that you do not lose time when you're investing. So you have members of the diaspora traveling to go and invest, which may not really be good use of time. I know there are many success stories on diaspora investment, but the first thing would be having investment for a social impact. The forum that is 20 years old has a good local investment strategy. We are able to transform areas through our investment. We look at opportunities for financing, opportunities of support, and we're able to move into localities and in Mali and in Senegal. You have hospitals being built, post offices, etc., and that is 10 times better than productive investments. Yes, productive investment can be of use to the family, but you need to have a more social impact rather than that family and individual impact. We should not just limit our investments. Yes, they earn money, but they should look at having a social impact. I'm a fan of collective investment that has a social impact. We could develop other forms of entrepreneurship for the diaspora. Thank you, Hadi.
It's okay. You have 1 minute and then I have 1 minute.
Something that we were talking with Ula, because we work a lot with JZ and on Meet Africa, is the importance of partnerships between Europe and Africa. And we tried it actually in Meet Africa and in also German programs for diaspora, is implementing partnerships among the ecosystem. So 2 incubators working together, one in France, one in Germany, and one in the implementing country. So just, I think this is one of the future evolutions that we can have to implement the projects.
Thank you. I have 1 minute and 30 seconds to thank you very much to have been wonderful panelists. It was really a pleasure hearing everything that was said. It's a pain to try to wrap up everything that was so rich in a few words, but I just want to highlight that there is a consensus that the dynamic for investment and entrepreneurship from the diaspora is a steady one. There are many opportunities, including and perhaps especially in difficulties. There are also great obstacles. There are the traditional obstacles that every investor has to face, every entrepreneur is facing, but there are additional obstacles linked to the diaspora status, not being considered as an entrepreneur. There are also obstacles as a woman entrepreneurs. And a very interesting point is the change of mindset. With the country, we are entrepreneurs before being diaspora, so treat us as entrepreneurs. And also with the family. We don't we don't necessarily invest with the family. We are philanthropic, and everything that's dealing with entrepreneurship or investment is a matter of business. We also went through all the drivers and added value. There are many initiatives, and we saw there are quick wins that could be undertaken from every stakeholders on the sector. Thank you very much again. It was a pleasure, and I hope we can deepen that in the next days again.